The advice given on He Said, She Said are only the opinions of one small Mexican and one skinny Asian. All advice should be used with extreme caution. He Said, She Said will not be held responsible if you ruin your life.
Policeman up in my face.
No fireman.
No, because me
No
and Danielle were probably
IMPD.
up there.
IMPD. No telling them about the inebriation.
No liberation over in this nation. Where that police?
She's trying to rap with an accent.
He says this.
She says that.
He said, she said.
What?
What's going on, everybody? So last week we talked about jealousy, and a lot of times jealousy can result in a breakup. So this week we're going to talk about how to end a relationship with your significant other. And this episode actually is going to be a two-part episode. So the next episode we're going to talk about how to deal with that breakup after you've broken up with that person.
So, before and after breakup, I want to point out that, first of all, there are two kinds of breakups. There's a big range here of douchey breakups, and then there's very few people who can do it the classy way. So our advice today is about how to plan the classy breakup that does the least amount of damage and keeps you both in a good place moving forward. Also note that domestic violence, as Kuhn pointed out, is a totally different thing that will not follow these rules, that has its own set of rules.
So now we're going to get into our first point, and now listen, this is really important. Do not sleep with the person, okay? Stop all sexual content whatsoever, because sex just complicates things.
How?
Well, when you have sex with them, you're going to think, hey, maybe this person still likes me. Maybe I have a chance. When clearly you don't have a chance. You might be just a booty call, and they just, So yeah, sex just complicates things.
Okay, so another thing about the whole sex being complicated thing is not only is it complicated, but when you know you want to break up with someone, you want to start creating distance. And every time you have sex with someone, you are touching base with them and creating an intimacy, even if it's not making love. So the sooner you can start creating the distance, the easier the breakup's ultimately going to be. And you want it to be an easy breakup. Okay, so the second point we want to tell you is while you're creating distance, you want to stop RSVPing to things you have no intention of attending. So no future commitments should be made once you know you don't want to be with that person anymore. So for example, if say the person's getting a wedding invitation and you say you're going to be their +1, that's really a crappy move to make on a person, because in 3 months they're going to have to deal with either finding a date at the last minute and still dealing with that awkwardness, or going alone to a wedding and feeling like they have to answer all these questions.
Right.
Yeah.
And believe me, it sucks to be the one that has to say, oh, my +1 didn't come because blah, 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 blah. So.
And it's not even just important events, but small things too. If you're dating someone and you plan out 3 movies you wanted to see with the other person over the summer, every time one of those movies comes up, the pain is refreshed. So it's just creating all these benchmarks where the pain gets refreshed and the person remembers all these promises that you didn't keep.
It's like planting minefields, and when you step on a minefield, an explosion of emotions happens.
Every date that you said that you don't plan to go to is that mine.
Yep. Alright guys, so this takes us to our third point, which is setting the scene, okay? So whenever you're closing off the relationship, you need to take into consideration the appropriate timing and choose a platform before you break it off.
Okay, so how do I choose the best timing? I mean, there's not a good time to break up with somebody.
Okay, so you would think about what you can do to make the breakup less hurtful. And one of the ways is making sure the timing's correct. So you wouldn't want to break up somebody during a holiday. Like I know somebody that was dumped during Valentine's Day, like on Valentine's Day.
I like how you laughed at that too.
And
it's nice of you.
I mean, it's not funny. Well, it's kind of it's a little messed up.
It's a little messed up.
But yeah, and so for them, they're gonna think every Valentine's Day from that moment, it's gonna suck because they're gonna remember that moment that they were dumped.
So it's sort of like the RSVP thing, where it creates a future pain or a landmine that you step on.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so if it is a bad time, like a holiday, or let's say somebody's mom just died, when is the best time to handle that? Is it before? It's definitely not the day of, or is it after?
I'd say after, because that event is already over with, and they won't remember that that was associated with the holiday.
Okay, so it's just like the new blank space.
Exactly. Yep.
Got it. Okay, so aside from choosing the appropriate timing, there's also the issue of choosing the appropriate platform or media. For example, a lot of people go down in history as bad breaker-uppers by sending a text or an email or a voice message. Like, what is wrong with you? Don't ever do that, first of all. Rule number 1 is whatever media you choose, the conversation needs to happen live. So, for example, if you were in a long-distance relationship and you spent a lot of time on the phone, you don't have to necessarily be in person to break up, but it should be a live conversation, not something that they have to type in a passcode and hear on their voicemail. That's just rude. The same, like if you were online dating, you could do a live chat. If you've had a significantly long relationship, the best bet is probably to do it in person and like own up, have a conversation, deal with that awkward moment, and then put some closure on it so you don't have to deal with it anymore in the future. So there are appropriate platforms to choose from, but it should always reflect how your relationship went and the depth of that relationship and really how much you respect the person, but always live.
Real time.
So if you're having a live conversation, it's a horrible idea to try to wing it, which is a mistake I will say a lot of people will probably make, is they're like, I'm just going to do this and get it over with. It's not like a Band-Aid. You have to plan out how you're going to approach the conversation, anticipate maybe how they're going to react. Is this a crazy person? Are they going to start throwing things? Are they very sensitive and they're going to start crying, and how you're going to negotiate that. One thing that I would say is plan out what kinds of nice things you will say in this conversation, not just the bad stuff.
So, how am I supposed to say something nice when I'm trying to break up with somebody? Because I can't imagine doing that.
Okay, well, again, we're doing this the classy way, right? So even in the worst breakups,
The classy way.
you want to think that when somebody is being dumped, they're already feeling rejected, they're already feeling a sense of their self-worth dropping, and they already have to deal with a lot of pain. So to ease that, you can remind them that it wasn't a total waste of time, of their time, of your time, that there were good things. So, even a sentence just like, things were really good with us in the beginning, but, or, I really appreciate that you taught me this, and now you're in a different place. Just those little pinpoints of nice things, it eases the tension. It makes the person feel like it was a valuable experience, and it would probably help both of you put some closure on it. That there was a reason you guys were together, and it's a relationship all the way up until the very end, and you gotta work to make it easy.
Okay, so it helps bring closure, and it helps the person you're breaking up with get over you a little faster. Because
right.
it makes them think that it's not all their fault.
Right. And it shows, honestly, that you respect them too, and that you're not trying to hurt them, or you're not just trying to be mean, that there are genuine reasons why things used to be good and they're not anymore.
Alright, so this brings us back to our last point. Don't leave any loose ends. Be prepared to answer questions, because there will be questions, and there'll definitely be questions onto like why. Just why. So just be prepared to, answer why.
And I'd like to add that the more rules that we discussed earlier that you break, the more questions there will be. So if you slept with them, they're going to be like, why did you sleep with me
Why?
if you knew that you were thinking about this?
You knew you
Why
was
did
going to
you
break up with me.
Say you were coming to the wedding, what am I supposed to say? You will have so many more questions to answer the more mistakes you make, and the less honest you are with the distance we were talking about. So be prepared for questions, anticipate the questions. Okay, so Coom, tell me, what happens when you don't answer those questions?
Okay, so if you don't answer those questions, the dumpee is going to forever wonder, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? Was it me? Was it them? So these questions are always going to cycle in their heads, and it's
internalize.
it's gonna affect them in a way that will affect the future relationships too. So you have to make sure that communication is clear throughout the relationship, even at the end. Because if they have those loose ends, if they have those questions that are still lingering, then it's just going to damage them. And a damaged person is not good for a future relationship.
So keep that in mind, that you can be damaging not only that person, but the next 3 people they date if you mess them up enough. The other thing is unanswered questions lead to 3 a.m. drunk dials and all. Oh my God, baby, I miss you.
What did I do wrong?
I wish you were here at this wedding with me.
They're asking me where you're at.
I think they got the bouquet.
It sucks. Oh my God.
The cake people look like us. It gets bad. You don't want to deal with that. So
Right.
wrap up as many loose ends as you can before you're gone. Okay, so that wraps up our plan for the perfect breakup. So good luck with your next one. In the second part of this series, we are going to find out what you should do after a breakup. So assuming the breakup went successful, what are the things you deal with afterwards? And we'll find out how our puppets have been doing with our he said, she said advice.
And remember, guys, if everything goes horribly wrong, she
He
said
said
it.
it.
He says this.
She says that. He said, she said.
What?
What?